Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. This evening's reciters are dear Yashwant for reading English translation, and we got dear Uddhava for reading Sanskrit verses. They'll be reading from Canto 3, Chapter 28, verses 1 to 15. Uddhav, would you like to start with invocation, please, when you start? Around 8:40 also, we have a beautiful bhajan, which will be sung by Inakshi and Pauni, and the bhajan is called Vrindavan Ramya Sthana. Thank you. Uddhava, would you like to start with the invocation 3 times? Thank you. Hare Krishna. We can't hear you properly, Uddhav.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Yogasya Lakshananam Bhakshi. Sorry, Shri Bhagavan Vacha Yogasya Lakshanam Bhakshye Sabijasa Nirpatmaje Mano Ye Eneva Vidhina Prasanam Yati Satpatam.
Translation. Personality of Godhead said, "My dear mother, O daughter of the king, now I shall explain to you the system of yoga, the object of which is to concentrate the mind. By practicing this system, one can become joyful and progressively advance towards the path of absolute truth."
Dharmacharanam Satya Vidharma Chanivartanam Deva Labdhena Santosha Atma Vicharnaracharanam.
Translation. One should execute his prescribed duties to the best of his ability and avoid performing duties not allotted to him. One should be satisfied with as much gain as he achieves by the grace of the Lord, and one should be worshipped the lotus feet of a spiritual master.
Gramya Dharmanrvittischa Moksha Dharmaratistata Mitta Medyadanam Shashvad Vivikta Kshema Shevanam.
Translation. One should cease performing conventional religious practices and should be attracted to those which lead to salvation. One should eat very frugally and should always remain secluded so that he can achieve the highest perfection of life.
Himsa Satyam Asteyam Yavad Artha Parigraha Brahmacharyam Tapasaucham Svadayaha Purushcharam Charnam.
Translation. One should practice non-violence and truthfulness, should avoid thieving, and should be satisfied with possessing as much as he needs for his maintenance. He should abstain from sex life, perform austerity, be clean, and study the Vedas, and worship the supreme form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Maunam Sat Asana Jaya Steryam Prana Jaya Sanahi Pratyaharas Chendriyanam Vishayan Manasa Riddhi.
One must observe silence, acquire steadiness by practicing different yogic postures, control the breathing of the vital air, withdraw the senses from sense objects, and thus concentrate the mind on the heart.
Svatishnayanam Vikshadeshe Manasa Prana Dharanam Vaikuntha Lila Vidyanam Samadhanam Tatatmanaha.
Translation. Fixing the vital air and the mind in one of the 6 circles of vital air circulation within the body, thus concentrating one's mind on the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is called samadhi or samadhana of the mind.
Tar Anyaischa Patibir Manodushtama Satpatam Buddhyayunjita Sanaike Jita Pranur Hi Atandritaha.
Translation. By these processes or any other true process, one must control the contaminated, unbridled mind, which is always attracted by material enjoyment, and thus fix himself in thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Shaudeshi Pratishtapya Vijittasanam Tasmin Swasti Savasina Rijukaya Samyaset.
Translation. After controlling one's mind and sitting postures, one should spread a seat in a secluded, sanctified place. Sit there in an easy posture, keeping the body erect, and practice breathing control.
Panasya Sodahayan Margam Pura Kumbhakare Chake Kulena Vachittam Yatashtiram Achanchala.
Translation. The yogi should clear the passage of the vital air by breathing in following manner. First, he should inhale very deeply, then hold the breath in, and finally exhale, or reversing the process. The yogi can first exhale and then hold the breath outside and finally inhale. This is done so the mind may become steady and free from external disturbances.
Manuchirat Shadvirajam Jitasvarshaya Yoginah Vyav Agni Vyam Ham Dhatmatam Jajati Vimalam.
Translation. The yogis who practice such breathing exercises are very soon freed from all mental disturbances, just as gold, when put into fire and fanned with air, becomes free from all impurities.
Pranayama Tahe Doshan Dharanabhishtakilvishan Pratyahare Samsargan Dhyane Naniswaran Gunan.
Translation. By practicing the process of pranayama, one can eradicate the contamination of his physiological condition. By concentrating the mind, one can become free from all sinful activities. By restraining the senses, one can free himself from material association. And by meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can become free from the three modes of material attachment.
Damana Samvirajam Yogena Svishmahitam Kastam Bhagavato Dhyayet Svanagas Nasagravalokanah.
Translation. When the mind is perfectly purified by this practice of yoga, one should concentrate on the tip of the nose with half-closed eyes and see the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Prasannavanam Bhojam Padmagarbharunekshanam Nilotpaladala Sankha Chakragadadaram.
Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has a cheerful lotus-like countenance, with ruddy eyes like the interior of a lotus, and a swarthy body like the petals of a blue lotus. He bears a conch, discus, and mace in 3 of his hands.
Lasat Pankaja Kinjalka Pita Kausheya Vasasam Shivatsa Vakshasam Brajat Kaustubhamukta Kandaram.
Translation. His loins are covered by a shining cloth, yellowish like the filaments of a lotus. On his breast he bears the mark of Shirasta, a curl of white hair. The brilliant Kaustuba gem is suspended from his neck.
Matadvi Repakalaya Paritam Vanamalaya Pararadyahara Valaya Kiritangadhanupuram.
Translation. He also wears around his neck a garland of attractive Sylvian flowers, and a swarm of bees intoxicated by its delicious fragrance hums above the garland. He is further superbly adorned with a pearl necklace, a crown, and a pairs of armlets, bracelets, and anklets.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for the amazing recitation. Yeah, perfect start to the session. Hare Krishna to everyone for joining for the next Srimad Bhagavatam session. We'll be starting a new chapter today. We'll be starting chapter 28 of Canto 3, the first 3 verses. So we will start with the Mangalacharan prayers. Mataji, can I please have sharing rights, or do I already have them? 1 second. Okay. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so as I mentioned before, today we are looking at Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 28, texts 1 to 3. And the key theme or topic that I picked out is that it's about concentrating the mind. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text 1. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yogasya Lakshanam Vakshye Sabijasya Nripatmaje Manoye Neva Vidina Prasannam Yati Satpatham. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Personality of Godhead said, My dear mother, O daughter of the King, now I shall explain to you the system of yoga, the object of which is to concentrate the mind. By practicing this system, one can become joyful and progressively advance towards the path of the Absolute Truth. Okay, so just split up the purport a little bit to make it easier to go through it. As always, I'd like to ask if there's any volunteers who would like to read this part of the purport for us.
Can I read, Prabhuji, please?
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam 3.28.1, purport 1 to 5, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The yoga process explained by Lord Kapil Dev in this chapter is authorized and standard, and therefore these instructions should be followed very carefully. To begin, the Lord says that by yoga practice, one can make progress towards understanding the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. Okay, so yeah, so what is the aim of this yoga? What is the goal? And it's clearly explained here by Srila Prabhupada that we want to understand the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And yeah, Srila Prabhupada has specifically, you could end the sentence after absolute truth, but to make it absolutely clear, he's also put the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, obviously we all know there are multiple features or aspects of the absolute truth, and most commonly is explained in terms of three aspects, as we know: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So these are the three main aspects of the absolute truth. But it's explained in the scriptures and in Srimad Bhagavatam specifically that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or the personal form, Bhagavan, this is the original and it's the source of the others. So everything comes from the original personal aspect of the Lord, which, as we know, Srila Prabhupada calls in English the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So very, very important to understand personality of Godhead, which is obviously Sri Krishna. Okay, would anyone like to read the next part of the purport, please?
Hare Krishna, may I?
Yes, please, thank you.
Yes. In the previous chapter, it has been clearly stated that the desired result of yoga is not to achieve some wonderful mystic power. One should not be at all attracted by such mystic power, but should attain progressive realization on the path of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, which states in the last verse of the 6th chapter that the greatest yogi is he who constantly thinks of Krishna within himself, or he who is Krishna conscious. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Mataji. So, yeah, Prabhupada is mentioning here that in the previous chapter, chapter 27, it was described that we shouldn't be doing yoga in order to achieve mystic power, to achieve mystic potencies. Yeah, a devotee is not attracted by that mystic power, and we will look soon. We will look a bit more in detail about these mystic powers, just so that we have a little bit of understanding what we're talking about. But obviously, Prabhupada also is mentioning a verse from the Bhagavad Gita. So, I was thinking earlier when I was preparing for the class, and those whoever have given a class will know as well that it's quite it makes it quite easy, or makes it quite helpful when Prabhupada mentions, he then mentions, in Bhagavad Gita it says this, or in another scripture it says this, because then it's like it's a clear invitation for whoever's giving the class to then look at that particular verse. So it makes things simpler for us as well. And that's just a side point, but yeah, Prabhupada is talking about the last verse of the 6th chapter. So let's just have a look at that. Yoginam api sarvesham madgatenantaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamo mataha. And of all yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. So, yeah, so previously we're hearing our aim when it comes to yoga should not be achieving mystic power. So we're hearing that instead we should try and understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and ultimately through that understanding, once we've gained that knowledge, once we've understood, okay, what do we do now? So here it's explained that we should render transcendental loving service to Sri Krishna, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is the actual aim, or that should be our aim. Sorry, I think my camera froze for a second. Hopefully you didn't miss anything. Yeah, so the aim should be transcendental loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And whoever is, rendering that service, Krishna himself is saying that they are the highest yogi. So quite clear there. Okay, so let's just quickly have a look at these mystic powers. So in Canto 11, Chapter 15, text 4 to 5, it explains the 8 mystic opulences. So here I've just got Srila Prabhupada's translation here. So among the 8 primary mystic perfections, the 3 by which one transforms one's own body are Anima, becoming smaller than the smallest, Mahima, becoming greater than the greatest, and Laghima, becoming lighter than the lightest. Through the perfection of Prapti, one acquires whatever one desires, and through Prakamya Siddhi, one experiences any enjoyable object either in this world or the next. Sorry, are you hearing everything I'm saying? I think the camera keeps freezing.
Yes,
Yes.
probably we can listen. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that's 5 of them. Then through Ishita Siddhi, one can manipulate the subpotencies of Maya, and through the controlling potency called Vashita Siddhi, one is unimpeded by the 3 modes of nature. One who has acquired Kama Vasayita Siddhi can obtain anything from anywhere to the highest possible limit. So these things are very attractive to materialistic persons, but those who are sincere devotees, they are not, they are not attracted by these things. But yeah, for the general person, can you imagine, acquiring whatever you desire, experiencing any enjoyable object, attaining anything from anywhere to the highest limit? If this was, public knowledge and also easy to acquire, then, everyone would be doing it. This is, for most people, this would be the dream. But, for a devotee, it's insignificant because, well, one thing is, for a devotee, they automatically, by being a pure devotee of the Lord, automatically they already have these perfections. They're already perfect and everything. But yeah, they have no interest in these things because ultimately, they're not interested in getting whatever they want for themselves or experiencing anything for their own enjoyment, because they understand, that's not the goal of life. The goal of life is to satisfy Krishna's enjoyment, not ours. As it's explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the desire to please our own senses is lust, but the desire to please Krishna's senses is love. So that is the difference. And so, yeah, for a pure devotee, they have no lust. There's no trace of lust within them. They're simply absorbed in that pure love of Godhead, that pure love for Krishna. So, yeah, they have no interest in their own sense gratification. And ultimately, pleasing Krishna's senses is what also, as a byproduct, pleases us the most anyway. So actually, rather than trying to be happy by pursuing our own enjoyment, if we try to simply pursue Krishna's enjoyment, then automatically, as a byproduct of that, we will become happy, and even happier than we could possibly be if we were just chasing sense gratification. But yeah, as I said, the pure devotee already has these, and we see, like in some past times, they may from time to time use these mystic powers, but again, they don't use it for themselves. They use it for Krishna, they use it for the Supreme Lord, or they use it for their service. As we know, we can use anything in Krishna's service, that's fine. Yukta Vairagya. I think probably for us, the best example, or the most well-known example of what we're talking about, would obviously be Hanuman. Especially if we look at the first two, becoming smaller than the smallest and becoming greater than the greatest. Well, we know Hanuman displayed these two mystic perfections when he was flying over the ocean to reach Lanka. As we know, Hanuman faced so many different obstacles on his journey, and all these things which were threatening to stop him or get in between him and his service. Hanuman, he had a service, and he was just completely focused on his service. I need to get to Lanka, find Mother Sita, and give her the message and give her the ring. So he's fully fixed in his service, and because of that, he didn't let any of those things distract him or tempt him away from his service. But at certain points, in order to get away and continue his journey to get to his service, he had to employ these mystic perfections. So, certain demonic personalities tried to stop him. So, at one point he had to become very, very small, and at one point he had to become very, very big. He had to become huge in size. So in that way, he used these mystic perfections, but not for himself. So, so this is the thing. And one time, we may be aware, some of you may have heard this pastime already, that one time Srila Prabhupada was with the devotees in India. I think it may have been in Vrindavan, in Krishna Balaram temple, but I'm not 100% sure. I think it is. But anyway, Srila Srila Prabhupada was there with many devotees, presumably in the temple room. And there was one magician who came, and he was doing various, magic tricks, as they often do, like pulling things out of a hat or out of different objects. And he was doing all these different tricks like that. And, it was quite a light-hearted atmosphere for the most part. But then afterwards, Srila Prabhupada became a bit more serious, and basically, to paraphrase that, this is nice, but you can make, because he was also making things disappear. So Srila Prabhupada was basically, yes, you can make these things disappear, these various objects, you can make them disappear. But can you make birth, death, old age, and disease disappear? Can you make these things disappear? These sufferings of life, can you make these things disappear? And the magician obviously said, no, Srila Prabhupada, I cannot make those things disappear. But the point that Srila Prabhupada was trying to make is that, that's the, Srila Prabhupada is giving us, or he has given us, the means by which we can make those things disappear. And that's the, Srila Prabhupada was saying, that's the real magic, So actually, in that example, Srila Prabhupada is the real magician, because he's showing us how to make old age, disease, death, and then obviously further births, how to make all of those disappear. So that is the real magic. Okay, so yeah, we don't need to go into further detail in this, because, as we said, this is not our goal. And, Srila Prabhupada doesn't go into further detail here either. You could say, what are the sub-potencies of Maya? I have no idea. Srila Prabhupada doesn't explain it. But, for us as devotees, it doesn't really, it's not important. But yeah, I just wanted to go through, just so we have at least some idea, just so we know what Srila Prabhupada is talking about. Okay, do we have another volunteer to read the next part of the purport, please?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, may I read please?
Yes, please.
Hare Krishna, thank you. It is stated here that by following the system of yoga, one can become joyful. Lord Kapila, the personality of Godhead, who is the highest authority on yoga, here explained the yoga system known as Ashtanga Yoga, which comprises 8 different practices, namely Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. By all these stages of practice, one must realize Lord Vishnu, who is the target of all yoga. Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Mataji. Okay, so now, here when we're talking about yoga, I think everyone on this call knows what we're actually talking about when we're, mentioning yoga, and it's not just the physical exercises. So I don't think we need to go into too much detail on that. But it's obviously important to understand here that it says, by following the system of yoga, one can become joyful. As we know, Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, Susukam Kartamabhyam. He says that this process of devotional service is joyfully performed. If we're doing it right, or you could say, if we're doing it with the right intentions, with the right motive, then when we are engaged in devotional service, then we will find it to be joyful. And when we say engage in devotional service, that could simply be chanting and dancing, in kirtan. That's also devotional service. Shravanam Kirtanam, So yeah, this can be joyful, and I guess those kinds of things like singing and dancing, having prasadam, it's easier to understand, that these can be joyful, and we may already experience some of that joy. But this applies to any kind. If we look at the 9 processes of devotional service, then we find all of those things joyful. Any kinds of service, if we're at that stage, we would find that joyful. Even listening to a class or giving a class, we'll find joyful. But yeah, as we've heard before, I'm sure that sometimes we have to kind of fake it till you make it, in the sense that Srila Prabhupada said that, what was it? One devotee was saying that, Srila Prabhupada, you're saying to dance in kirtan, but I have no enthusiasm to dance in kirtan. So Srila Prabhupada's answer was, just dance anyway, and then the enthusiasm will come. So in other words, dance first, then the enthusiasm will come. If you wait for the enthusiasm to come first before you do, then you might be waiting a very, very long time. So better just do it, and then the enthusiasm will come. And when we're in that situation, then, as we know, it's very important for us to be doing it in association. Obviously, if it's just us or just 1 or 2 people, we may not feel like, or we may not be inspired to dance. But if there's loads of devotees, or several devotees dancing really enthusiastically, joyfully, I'm sure, those of us who experienced that in the temple room, for example, in morning program, if you're there at the manor during Guru Puja, and you see often the devotees, they are, they're very, very joyful, dancing around the temple room and singing the holy name very joyfully. And that enthusiasm and joy, it's very infectious, as they say. And it makes you enthused as well. So yeah, when we don't feel that enthusiasm, that joy, then association, of course, association is always important, but in that situation, association is vitally important. So yeah, that's important to understand. And then, Prabhupada is saying that, even the yoga system known as Ashtanga Yoga, which generally we don't really practice, as devotees of the Hare Krishna movement. Generally, we don't practice, or we understand that we don't need to, because we're already practicing bhakti yoga. But Prabhupada is saying here that Lord Kapila himself, he's saying the highest authority on yoga, he's explaining Ashtanga Yoga. So he's giving Ashtanga Yoga. He's explaining this, to his mother Devahuti. And, Prabhupada is saying, by all these stages of practice, one must realize Lord Vishnu, who is the target of all yoga. So if one is doing it like that, with that intention to realize the Lord, then it's not what's the word? It's not going against, what we are doing. If we think, someone who is performing Ashtanga yoga, or they're not, like we have the understanding of the yoga ladder, we can say that, they're not on the higher stage of the ladder, bhakti yoga, but they're doing something else. But actually, if they're doing it, and like Prabhupada is saying, if their target is Lord Vishnu, then there's no discrepancy, with what they're doing. And then Prabhupada goes on to say that there are so-called yoga practices in which one concentrates the mind on voidness or on the impersonal. But this is not approved by the authorized yoga system as explained by Kapila Dev. Even Patanjali explains that the target of all yoga is Vishnu. Ashtanga yoga is therefore part of Vaishnava practice because its ultimate goal is realization of Vishnu. So yeah, here obviously Srila Prabhupada explains it better than I can, that this Ashtanga yoga is part of Vaishnava practice, because its ultimate goal is still God realization. Okay, so when it's saying that the impersonal, focusing on the impersonal is not approved by the authorized yoga system, and the focus is on, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so the personal form. So therefore, we understand which one is superior. Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, the personal or the impersonal, which is superior. So there are great personalities, even in the Srimad Bhagavatam, even in our scriptures. They may be liberated, they are at a very high stage in their spiritual journey, but they're impersonalists. We know at some point that the four Kumaras, they were ultimately impersonalists. But then, when they were fortunate enough to be in the presence of Lord Narayan, of Lord Vishnu in Vaikuntha, they smelled the beautiful fragrance of the tulsi leaves that have been offered at the lotus feet of Lord Narayan. But then also, they then saw him in person and saw his beautiful form. And just like that, they went from impersonal to personal. They went from impersonalists to pure Vaishnavas. And also another major example is Shukadev Goswami. So as we know, as soon as Shukadev Goswami came out of the womb, he was already a liberated soul. But initially, he was an impersonalist. And, we know that he immediately decided to leave home. As soon as he, can you imagine, as soon as you have come out of the womb, you leave home immediately. He was he was already liberated, and he had no interest in a materialistic life, and he left home. But obviously, that's not what his father wanted. So, they tried to get him back, but he wouldn't listen. But then, Shukadeva Goswami heard certain verses, or specifically heard two verses, and when he heard those verses, that stopped him in his tracks, and then he turned around and he came back, and then ultimately, heard Srimad Bhagavatam from his father, so that then he could himself pass on the Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj, and ultimately to all of us. But yeah, there was two verses in particular which transformed Shukadev Goswami. So okay, so the first verse is Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 10, chapter 21, text 5. So what was happening here is that hearing about Krishna's beauty attracted Shukadev Goswami. So this verse, Barhapidam Natavara Vapuhu Karnayo Karnikaram Bibradvasa Kanaka Kapisham Vaijayantim Chamalam Randran Veno Adara Sudaya Purayan Gopa Vrinde Vrindaranyam Swapada Ramanam Pravishad Gita Kirtihi. Wearing a peacock feather ornament upon his head, blue karnikara flowers on his ears, a yellow garment as brilliant as gold, and the Vaijayanti garland, Lord Krishna exhibited his transcendental form as the greatest of dancers as he entered the forest of Vrindavan, beautifying it with the marks of his footprints. He filled the holes of his flute with the nectar of his lips, and the cowherd boys sang his glories. So here, very rarely do we hear such, beautiful descriptions of people. So then when Shukadev Goswami heard this beautiful description, then obviously he was attracted, all of a sudden, what is this? What is this person that I'm hearing about? So this attracted him, but he's not yet fully transformed. So then what was the second verse which sealed the deal, you could say? So this is a verse also in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which originally was spoken by Uddhava. And it is found in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 2, Text 23. So what is happening here is that hearing about Krishna's compassion and love is what completely transformed Shukadev Goswami's heart. So first he was attracted, and then here he was fully transformed. And I'm sure probably many of us are familiar with this verse. Aho bakiyam stanakalakutam jigham sayapaya yadapya sadvi lebe gatim datri uchitam tatonyam kambadayalum sharanam brajema. Alas, how shall I take shelter of one more merciful than he who granted the position of mother to a she-demon, Putana, although she was unfaithful and had prepared deadly poison to be sucked from her breast? So, can we imagine? This is how much compassion and love is within Krishna's heart, that even to a demonic personality whose aim was not to express love, but to try and kill Krishna, still to such a person, he granted her the position, just like a mother. How can we can't possibly imagine of someone, more merciful than that. So, such a powerful verse. One thing on this I was going to say, like I always wondered why in the translation it says alas, because alas means unfortunately, regrettably, sadly. So I was thinking, surely this is kind of the opposite of that, that, oh, it's amazing that we have someone so merciful like that. But I hadn't fully, understood or remember the context of this verse. So the context of this, which is important to understand as well, is that this is after Krishna has left, So this, after Krishna has left the world, he's departed, he's finished his earthly pastimes, and Uddhava is remembering, he's reminiscing about Krishna, and he's absorbed in separation from Krishna. So he's absorbed in that transcendental sorrow of being separated from Krishna. And in that mood, the understanding is that he's saying, like, now that Krishna is gone, there is no one else like that who is so merciful. So there's no one else I can take shelter. You know, anyone else who I take shelter, they're not going to be as merciful as Krishna, this personality who granted the position of mother to a she-demon. So, yeah, I wanted to just mention that as well. So then after hearing these two verses, then Shukadeva Goswami thought, okay, I want to, you know, I want to hear this Srimad Bhagavatam. You know, I'm hearing about this Krishna, and now I'm convinced I want to hear the rest of the Srimad Bhagavatam. I want to hear more about this Krishna. So this is so if for such a completely liberated soul who's an impersonalist, and also like the four Kumaras, like we mentioned just before, if those personalities, they're liberated from material life, but they still switch over from impersonalism to personalism, that means very clearly that personalism is superior. Otherwise, you know, if impersonalism was superior, then there would be no reason for them to transform like that. But because focusing on Bhagavan is higher than impersonal realization, therefore they were transformed. Because that Bhagavan realization, what is it actually? When we're on that platform, we're having that loving relationship with Krishna. On the Brahman platform, you know, when we're just merged in the Brahma Jyoti, there is no loving relationship, there's no loving reciprocation, there's no service, you know. So because of that, it can never fully satisfy the heart. But here we can see Shukadev Goswami has been transformed because he's found that thing which fully satisfies the heart, you know, which is Krishna. So the final part of this purport, Srila Prabhupada says that the achievement of success in yoga is not acquisition of mystic power, which is condemned in the previous chapter, but rather freedom from all material designations and situation in one's constitutional position. That is the ultimate achievement in yoga practice. So as we all know, what is our constitutional position? It's explained very clearly in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila chapter 20. Jivera Swarupa Hoy Krishnera Nityadas Krishnera Tatashta Shakti Bheda Bheda Prakash. It is the living entity's constitutional position to be an eternal servant of Krishna because he is the marginal energy of Krishna and a manifestation simultaneously one with and different from the Lord. Yeah, the important point to focus on here. So situation in our constitutional position, which is to be an eternal servant of Krishna. So that is the ultimate achievement of yoga practice. So the other two verses, we'll be able to get through that quicker. So if it's okay, we'll just pause here because I know we have a bhajan, and then we can maybe just finish off after the bhajan. So yeah, I'll just stop sharing for now. So yeah, I'll pass it on to the devotees who will be leading us through a beautiful bhajan. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, my pranams, all glory to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji, for a beautiful session. Sorry, Prabhuji, I'm trying to see if I can see Inakshi and Pavni online. Are you online, Inakshi and Pavni?
I can't see them.
Yeah, Mataji, I tried messaging them a few times as well. Sorry, Nikhil Prabhu, you'll have to give me a second because I'm going to give them a quick call now.
Okay, no problem.
Sorry. Thank you, Prabhuji. Not sure if anybody has any reflections or any questions to share, Prabhuji, while I call them. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji, could we read the English translation of the bhajan in the meantime, please?
Yes, of course,
Yeah.
Mataji. Yes.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Let me just
If
share.
it can be shared. Thank you.
Yes, Mataji. Sorry. Sorry, I had it open. Yeah, here. Okay, Mataji, did you want to go ahead, Shriji Kishori Mataji, if that's okay? Did you want to read the translation, Shriji Kishori
Yes, I
Mataji?
don't mind. Yes,
Yeah, okay,
I'll read
Mataji,
the
when
English
you're ready. Hare
translation.
Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna, everyone. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Beautiful Vrindavan is filled with Chintamani, gems, and many jewel palaces and temples. Many regal swans play in the waters of the Yamuna, and in those waters a splendid golden lotus flower grows. In the middle of that lotus is a golden place surrounded by 8 petals. On these 8 petals, the 8 principal gopis reside, and in the center, Lord Shyam Sundara and beautiful Srimati Radharani sit on a jewel throne. The great beauty of the divine couple and their charming... Could you scroll up, please, Mataji? Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Sorry.
Thank you. The great beauty of the divine couple and their charming joking and laughter continually showers nectar everywhere. Narottama Das says, I pray that these blissful, eternal, transcendental pastimes of the divine couple may always manifest in my heart. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. They are just joining now. Are you here now, Aditi Mataji? Okay. My apologies. They just need a minute to join, so they should be here any second. Okay.
Hare Krishna. Should I start with the singing or the translation?
Sorry, we've just done the singing in
Okay.
Akshi and Bhavni, so we could do the bhajan if that's okay. Thank you for joining. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Vrindavana ramya sthana divya chintamani dhama ratana mandira manohara Abrita Kalindini Raja Hamsa Trilikar Tahe Shobhe Kanaka Kamala Aramadhima Pita Ashtadale Bestita Ashtadale Pradhana Naika Radhatnaasane Rasiyache Dui Jane Shama Sanghe Sundari Radhika Orupala Banyarashi Amiya Pariche Kasi Hasya Pari Hasya Sambhasane Narottama Dasya Koi Nitya Leela Sukha Moy
सदाई स्फुरक मोर माने।
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for a beautiful singing. Hari Bol. Thank you, Shiji Kishori Mataji, as well for stepping in. Beautiful singing. Thank you. On to you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for beautiful bhajan, as always. Okay, so yeah, we will continue with the rest of the class. Obviously, if anyone needs to leave, then feel free. But yeah, we'll try and finish the other two verses. 1 second. Okay. So text 2. Swadharmacharanam shaktya vidharmakcha nivartanam daiva labdhena santosha atma vikcharanarchanam. Translation. One should execute his prescribed duties to the best of his ability and avoid performing duties not allotted to him. One should be satisfied with as much gain as he achieves by the grace of the Lord, and one should worship the lotus feet of a spiritual master. Okay, do we have another volunteer to read the purport for us, please?
I would like to, Prabhuji.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. In this verse, there are many important words which could be very elaborately explained, but we shall briefly discuss the important aspect of each. The final statement is Atmavik Charanam. Atmavik means a self-realized soul or bona fide spiritual master. Unless one is self-realized and knows what his relationship with the super soul is, he cannot be a bona fide spiritual master. Here, it is recommended that one should seek out a bona fide spiritual master and surrender unto him Archanam, for by inquiring from and worshipping him, one can learn spiritual activities. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. Okay, so yeah, so in this verse, it says one should worship the lotus feet of a spiritual master. And okay, so what kind of spiritual master should we look for? So they have to be bona fide. So a bona fide spiritual master, here it's explained, that is one who is self-realized and knows what his relationship with the super soul is. So that's the kind of spiritual master that we should look for and take instruction from. And then, okay, if we're fortunate to find such a spiritual master, then what do? We surrender unto them, Archanam. And surrendering means two things: that we inquire from them and worship them, or offer them all respects. So, any questions we have, any doubts that we may have, we can ask the spiritual master. We can inquire from them. And then worshipping them, as we know, it doesn't mean, when we're talking about spiritual master, worship the spiritual master, it doesn't mean worshipping them, with the thinking that they are God. Spiritual master is not God, but we show them, like Srila Prabhupada explains, we show them just as much respect as we give to God, because they are the one who gives Krishna to us, who gives God to us. by the spiritual masters. So by Krishna's mercy, we can attain the mercy of the spiritual master, but then by the mercy of the spiritual master, we can obtain the mercy of Krishna. So there's that interplay there between Krishna and the spiritual master. You know, we all hear this in the morning. You know, the Gurvashtakam prayers, which are sung during Mangalarti every morning in our temples. It explains this point, that we need the mercy of Krishna to obtain a spiritual master, and then by the spiritual master's mercy we can attain the lotus feet of Krishna. So because they are the one who is showing us the way to Krishna, who is, you could say, reuniting us with Krishna, therefore they are worthy of all respect, in the same way that we show respect and worship the Supreme Lord himself. Okay, so Prabhupada says that the first recommendation in this verse is Swadharma Charanam. As long as we have this material body, there are various duties prescribed for us. Such duties are divided by a system of 4 social orders: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. These particular duties are mentioned in the Shastra, and particularly in Bhagavad Gita. So then Prabhupada says that Swadharmacharana means that one must discharge the prescribed duties of his particular division of society, i.e. Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, faithfully and to the best of his ability. One should not accept another's duty. It's quite important there as well. And if one is born in a particular society or community, he should perform the prescribed duties for that particular division. So, probably most of us, are familiar with these 4 social orders, the 4 varnas, as they're called, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. But just in case anyone is not familiar, we can just quickly explain that Brahmanas are considered the head of the society, in the sense like the brain, like the Brahmanas are the ones who are meant to at least lead society in the right way, lead civilization in the right way. They have all the spiritual knowledge to understand how or in what direction society should go. So they're compared to like the head or the brain of society. Then, but they are not actually directly ruling or administering society. That duty falls to the Kshatriyas. So Kshatriyas are, especially in those times, they were rulers like kings, and they were also warriors. Kshatriyas are meant to, in terms of the literal meaning of the word, a Kshatriya is one who protects from harm. So they protect the rest of society from harm, and they're administering the society. So the Brahmanas are the advisors. They give the guidance and advice according to Shastra to the Kshatriyas, who then administer society. And then we have Vaishyas, like the merchant class, which is obviously, there's so many within that. There's so many different occupations which come under that, and then Shudras sometimes explained that all the I guess the remaining occupations after that come under Shudra. So often more simple labor or manual labor. But again, all of these, just like the Brahmanas are compared to the head, and Kshatriyas are compared to like the arms, the strong arms. They're all compared to different parts of the body, so they're all required. You know, you need all these different parts of the body to function. So in that sense, you know, neither of them are more important than the others. You need all of them. But at the same time, you can potentially survive without some of those parts of the body, but obviously you can't survive without the head. So we cannot have, as Srila Prabhupada would probably say, like a headless society. You know, we can't have a headless society. You know, society which has no direction, no idea where to go. So in that sense, sometimes it might be said that Brahmanas are especially important, but ultimately they're all required, they're all important. So yeah, they have, as Prabhupada mentions here, their duties are explained in the scriptures in Bhagavad Gita, so we can have a look at that if we want to know more. But it's explaining that we should perform the prescribed duties according to whichever of those orders. And again, this goes back to the importance of having a spiritual master. Obviously in Vedic civilization, initially you would go to the Gurukul, and then the guru there would be your spiritual master, and the guru would from understanding your nature, they would understand that, you know, you should, according to your nature, you are a Brahmana, or you're Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Like that, you should perform, you know, duties according to that. So the spiritual master would understand that according to your nature and explain that to you. And we should not accept another's duty. So again, like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, it's better to perform our duty imperfectly than somehow perform someone else's duty perfectly. So yeah, we should not accept another's duty, because that is not really according to our nature. And here it says, if you are born in that particular society or community, you should perform the prescribed duties for that division. So obviously this may require a bit more discussion or explanation, because usually we hear that that's not this system of Varnashram Dharma is not meant to be by birth, but by nature, by our quality. So how comes Prabhupada is saying here that if you're born in a particular society or community, you should perform those prescribed duties? So obviously, yeah, the primary consideration is your nature, your qualities, and that will determine it. But it just naturally worked out because of how the Vedic civilization was, that you know, someone will be born in a particular that community which are performing a particular occupation, and then naturally, you know, someone who's then born in that family, because the family is engaged in that occupation, naturally they will do that as well. And that, yeah, over time that just becomes the natural thing, because you're raised in that, you're trained, you know, you'll be trained from a young age to in that occupation. But obviously now, as we understand, generally, practically everyone in Kali Yuga in this day and age is a Shudra, and basically Shudra, and some you may see some Vaishyas, but that's about it. You know, quite clearly there are no Kshatriyas left in this world. And Brahmanas, obviously we are Brahmanas, we can say devotees. You know, devotee of Vaishnava is considered even higher than a Brahmana. So in that sense, we can say there are Brahmanas, but there are no Brahmanas in that particular, like there's no Varnashram system, so there are no Brahmanas in that position of being advisors and giving guidance to the leaders. The leaders of society, they're not Kshatriyas, they're Shudras or Vaishyas. There are no Kshatriyas, so therefore there's no, that system is not in place of Brahmanas giving guidance to Kshatriyas who then administer society. That's not present. Simply there are Vaishyas and Shudras electing other Vaishyas and Shudras, and that's it. So that's Kali Yuga. So we don't have that Varnashram Dharma system, apart from, you know, now it's gradually, devotees are trying to introduce it in various devotee communities, but you know, that will take some time, or maybe take a lot of time. You know, that kind of thing is very few and far between, as they say. But in the wider world, it's basically non-existent, this system. So now it's all, you know, it's all, because we're all basically in the same position, it's all topsy-turvy. So that's why also people find it very difficult to understand what occupation they should be engaged in. And for the most part, people are probably engaged in occupation which is not actually according to their nature. And it's maybe not the best thing for them, and therefore that's why they're not feeling so much satisfaction. You know, we see in the world today, most people are dissatisfied with their job, and mostly that's because it's not according to their nature. But they don't know it. They don't know their nature, and other people don't know how to explain their nature to them. Yeah, so it's just no one knows, you know, what's going on in Kali Yuga. So yeah, this thing about being in a particular society or community and then performing those prescribed duties, we don't really see that anymore. But here, yeah, so even more important than this this last sentence here is the next part, where Prabhupada says that if, however, one is fortunate enough to transcend the designation of birth in a particular society or community by being elevated to the standard of spiritual identity, then his swadharma or duty is solely that of serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The actual duty of one who is advanced in Krishna consciousness is to serve the Lord. As long as one remains in the bodily concept of life, he may act according to the duties of social convention, but if one is elevated to the spiritual platform, he must simply serve the Supreme Lord. That is the real execution of Swadharma. So yeah, if we are on the spiritual platform, then we don't have any, we just have this one duty. We don't have any other duties. We're not duty bound to anyone except Krishna. But for the vast majority of us, we're not on that pure platform yet. So yeah, so we still may have other duties to perform as well. And yeah, like Prabhupada says, as long as we remain in the bodily concept of life, then yeah, we obviously have to act according to those other duties, those social duties. So this is not our excuse for most of us to not perform duties, but it's just that once, if you're on that pure platform, then yeah, you're only duty bound to Krishna. And anyway, through executing those duties to Krishna, automatically you're fulfilling your duties to everyone else. But yeah, this is basically a pure devotee. So obviously we had Nrsimha Chaturdashi recently, so devotees obviously been thinking about Prahlad Maharaj and Nrsimhadev and like that. We see Prahlad Maharaj, he was a pure devotee and he was just completely focused on the Lord. And because of that, he had no other duties. He automatically, he had fulfilled all duty to his family, for example, because, as we all know, or if we are familiar with the pastime, we'll know that after everything, finished and Prahlad Maharaj pacified Lord Nrsimhadev, then the Lord kept insisting that please ask something from me. And Prahlad Maharaj just kept insisting, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not serving you. And I do not love you just for a transactional purpose, just to get something from you. I have no desire to get anything from you. I simply want to serve you. I'm simply doing this out of love. But the Lord kept insisting. So he said, okay, if you want to give me anything, then please grant your mercy to my father, grant liberation to my father. And then Lord Nrsimhadev says, not to worry, what to speak of just your father, but many generations of your family going back have already been liberated just because of by your pure devotional service. So just by becoming a pure devotee, we automatically fulfill all those other duties to everyone else. So it's not that, it's not that we should feel guilty that, oh no, I'm spending time on devotional service. That means I'm spending less time on other things. Obviously it's a balance and everyone has a different family situation, home situation. So we have to look at it according to our own situation. But in general terms, we shouldn't feel that if we're performing devotional service, that means we're not doing anything practical for anyone else or for our family and loved ones. We are actually doing something practical, but it's not, we may not be perceiving anything happening, but it is happening in the background. And just by those family members, by those relatives being connected to us, the more we advance in our devotional service, in our spiritual life, then they are getting benefit as well, even if it's not immediately perceived. Okay. So yeah, so we'll try and just get through this last verse. Gramya dharma nivrittischa moksha dharma ratistatha mittamedyadanam shashvad vivikta kshema sevanam. One should cease performing conventional religious practices and should be attracted to those which lead to salvation. One should eat very frugally and should always remain secluded so that he can achieve the highest perfection of life. And Prabhupada says in the purport, it is recommended herein that religious practice for economic development or the satisfaction of sense desires should be avoided. Religious practices should be executed only to gain freedom from the clutches of material nature. So this is, this part is fairly self-explanatory. We've heard quite a bit about this point today. That what should be the goal of our devotional practices? It should not be for any material purposes or to satisfy sense desires. So it is stated in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam that the topmost religious practice is that by which one can attain to the transcendental devotional service of the Lord without reason or cause. Such religious practice is never hampered by any impediments, and by its performance one actually becomes satisfied. Here this is recommended as moksha dharma, religious practice for salvation, or transcendence of the clutches of material contamination. Generally, people execute religious practices for economic development or sense gratification, but that is not recommended for one who wants to advance in yoga. So again, very clearly explained that the goal should be the transcendental devotional service of the Lord. Should see this. Okay, that's fine. Then the next important phrase is mita medhyadanam, which means that one should eat very frugally. It is recommended in the Vedic literatures that a yogi eat only half what he desires according to his hunger. If one is so hungry that he could devour 1 pound of foodstuffs, then instead of eating 1 pound, he should consume only half a pound and supplement this with 4 ounces of water. 1/4 of the stomach should be left empty for passage of air in the stomach. If one eats in this manner, he will avoid indigestion and disease. So here it's, ultimately the point is not to, at least if we're not following this, most people are not familiar with this kind of guidelines of how much you should eat, but at least don't eat more than is actually required. But, it can be very difficult, especially like even for us as devotees, if it's a festival day and there's a big feast and there's so many different preparations, we often say that, we fill up our plate of prasadam, and then we often, or we may say that, my eyes were bigger than my stomach. We saw all this prasadam, this amazing prasadam in front of us, and we take so much, but then afterwards, okay, actually, I don't have enough space in my stomach for all of this. So here there's some actual guidelines in the Vedic scriptures that only half, and then half with food, and then a quarter with water, and then the other quarter left empty. So there should always still be some space left. For me, initially, I didn't understand this explanation because I grew up with kilograms and things like that. So I don't know anything really about how many ounces in a pound and all of these things. A bit too young for pounds and all of this stuff, but I had to kind of research how many ounces are in a pound and all that to understand what's being explained here. But anyway, so another point is that if we eat in this way, actually it also helps us to avoid indigestion and disease. And obviously we have, like we fast on Ekadashi and things like that. Obviously we have the spiritual benefits, but even if putting the spiritual benefits aside, the material benefits of just giving our body a break, even for just a day, because we're just constantly filling with food every day and constantly getting the body to work, so sometimes it needs a break as well. The digestive system needs a break to get back into a better position. So it's good for the body in that way as well, even on the bodily platform. And then finally in the purport, Prabhupada says, the yogi should eat in this way as recommended in the Srimad Bhagavatam and all other standard scriptures. So this is just continuing on from the previous slide. And then the final point in the purport, the yogi should live in a secluded place where his yoga practice will not be disturbed. So the verse itself said, remain secluded. So Prabhupada is clarifying, what does that actually mean? Where your yoga practice will not be disturbed. So it doesn't necessarily mean seclusion, going to the forest, going to the mountains, Himalayas, like that. No, not necessarily. Just somewhere where your yoga practice will not be disturbed. That could be at home. It doesn't have to mean leaving home. But just even within a home, if we find somewhere where we can get a bit of that peaceful situation where we can perform our devotional service or our yoga practice or whatever it is in a more peaceful and undisturbed manner. For example, our chanting or reading like that. So if you can find somewhere like that, that's recommended. So I'll stop sharing here. And finally, just to quickly conclude, sorry, again, as I said, if you need to leave, then feel free. In the lecture, so Prabhupada gave a Sunday feast lecture in Honolulu, 1st of June 1975, on text 1, which we looked at today. And Prabhupada says that ultimately our occupational duty is to serve Krishna. Anything which does not help me in serving Krishna, if we give it up, and anything which helps me to serve Krishna, if we accept, in that way, if we live, then gradually we become situated in our original constitutional position, eternal servant of God. And that is the perfection of life. And yeah, Prabhupada also talks about a bit more about in his lecture about being engaged in our occupational duty. If we're doing it for the right reasons, is also part of our devotional service. And Prabhupada gives the example of Arjun. We don't hear about him. Oh, every day Arjuna was chanting Hare Krishna. We don't hear about Arjun chanting Hare Krishna, but Prabhupada says he's already on the stage of constantly chanting Hare Krishna because he's constantly absorbed in Krishna, constantly thinking of Krishna, and he was engaged. His nature as being a Kshatriya, fighting, he's fighting on the battlefield, engaging his nature, but fully absorbed in Krishna at the same time. And in that way, engaging his occupational duty for the service of Krishna, and that was his perfection. So, yeah. So, thank you for listening. Thank you for staying. I know we're finishing a bit late, but yeah, if anyone does have any final questions or comments you want to add before we finish, please feel free to unmute yourself. But yeah, thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for such a wonderful class. And I would like to just to comment what comes to my mind.
Sure.
When you speak, when you teach us about the duties, maybe, yeah, in my understanding, I was wondering how we can see, or how we can find our nature, because of course you said nowadays it's not like that about the
Yeah.
visions of the society. Now is different. So you mentioned that we maybe, yeah, each one has a nature. And so I heard from the Tingita circles. Maybe it's what comes to my mind. You can please explain a little bit more if I am understanding good. So
Okay.
in the chapter 5 of Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna explained us how we can stay in the world, so they explained us that we can function here, or we can stay in the world trying to find our dharma. So we can do something like maybe what is proper for our, depending on our nature, something that you love doing it, something that you are good at doing it, and something that the world needs, and you are paid for it. So I think this was a very beautiful way to understand this for me, and I can just maybe in my the easy way for me is just try to follow your heart. But you are, everyone know what maybe our heart is telling us. So maybe you can please explain me a little bit more what it's what you can say us about this nature of each one. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, thank you for the wonderful question. And yeah, thank you for sharing what you heard from Think Gita. Yeah, very good point there. Yeah, for most of us, at least there is something we usually feel naturally drawn towards. And yeah, often that can be what we enjoy doing, what we like to do. It could be what we're good at, but it's not always. Sometimes we're good at something, but we don't particularly enjoy it. But sometimes, if there's something which we are good at and we enjoy, then that's probably the main thing which we should focus on, the main thing according to our nature. Yeah, so if we're good at it and we enjoy it, that's the main thing. But yeah, sometimes we also, like the other ones you mentioned, sometimes we just have to do it. Like sometimes we have no choice but to do certain things which we may not enjoy, but because of our situation, we just have to do it. We just happen to be duty bound to do certain things, and that's just our situation here in this material world. So we're not, or maybe not always doing things we enjoy, and not always doing things that we're good at. And sometimes that's even good. Obviously, sometimes to do things that challenge us is good as well, especially in spiritual life as well. It's always good to be challenged sometimes. So yeah, sometimes it's a bit of a combination. But yeah, as I did say in the class, sometimes it can be very confusing to know what is our nature. So obviously we may not all of us have an actual guru ourselves, a spiritual master. We may not have. If we do, obviously we can speak to them about it, discuss with them about it. They may be able to give us some guidance, some insight. But even if we don't have a guru, a specific guru, then still, like, we can ask other devotees, or those that know us well. Ultimately, obviously it has to be someone who knows us well. If they don't know us well, they're not going to understand what is our nature, and then what is best for that nature. So yeah, we do have to discuss with those who know us well. If they are devotees, then obviously that's good, but sometimes it may not be. We may not be in that position. We may not be fortunate enough to have devotee friends who know us well. So sometimes it may have to just be other people who know us well, like friends and family, those who are close to us. Still, even if they're not spiritually minded, still they'll have some understanding of what is our nature, and they can also give some guidance on that. They can also help us to see things which maybe we not be able to see ourselves. So yeah, that's what I would say. So if we have people like that, ask them as well for guidance. Also, yeah, try to reflect, think about what are we good at, what do we enjoy doing, and if there's an intersection between those things, then that's gives us a good idea of what to focus on. And then the third thing I would say also, we can, as in all situations, we can also pray. We can pray to Krishna to give us guidance, and that may not be directly from him, but if we pray to him for guidance, or send someone, my way, send someone who will be able to give me that guidance. That goes for those who are looking for a guru, for a spiritual master as well. We can always pray to Krishna we can always pray to the Lord, you know, please help me, please send someone to help me in this way. So I think those would be the three things that I would say, but I'm not any expert on that, but hopefully that helps. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Anybody else, or we can finish here? Okay. Yeah, as I said, thank you so much, everyone, for joining and for staying, even though we're finishing a bit late. And I will offer my obeisances to all of you. Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for a very nice class. Thank you.
Haribol.